Chapter 9 Selfishness and Selflessness. Dewin's Perspective. Neri, what have you done? I asked in horror. What have I done? Neri said. Her voice was filled with insanity. I really have you to thank for all of this, dear Dewin. When I needed you most, you abandoned me. I felt so helpless, so powerless. And then I realized it. Why do I have to bow to the will of others when I have direct access to the greatest power in all of existence? With this power, I can do whatever I want. I can accomplish all of the great things I thought I could never accomplish. I can make people listen to me and do what I want. You're a madwoman, I shouted. If I am, it is only because you made me this way, Neri retorted. She started making a sound, but I couldn't tell if it was laughing or crying. She shot off a huge fireball. It was so large that I was barely able to escape its path. It flew behind me and destroyed an entire house. An entire house destroyed with one blast. I had never seen sorcery this strong before. It must have been the source. Since Neri held it in her hands, it must have been boosting her magical power. At the same time, I could feel my own magic slowly draining away. I ran and hid. Neri would fire off a blast of sorceress energy and destroy my hiding place, and I'd flee to a new one. Finally, I heard something that sounded like sorcery, but different from Neri's powerful blasts. I cautiously peeked out of my hiding spot and saw a large crowd of people had gathered, and all of them were firing shots of sorceress energy at Neri. She writhed in agony with each one until she finally fell to the ground, dead. No! I shouted. This woman had just been trying to kill me, but it still filled me with sorrow watching her die. I wished none of this had to happen. I remembered Alum's words and my exchange with Neri back in the council chamber, and realized we had both been acting selfishly. This really was just as much my fault. If only we could have just listened to each other. The love of my life was gone forever, and it was because I could only think of myself. A little while after that, I heard that an emergency meeting of the council had been called. When I tried to go to the council chambers, a guard outside told me I wasn't allowed to enter, so I used a secret passage to get inside. As the husband of the former guardian, I knew all the secret passages known only to guardians and their family. When I got to the meeting room, I kept down and out of sight. I knew they wanted me out of there for a reason, and figured it would probably be better not to let them know I was there. The council was in a panic. They said the guardian was supposed to be the most trusted member of our society, but she had betrayed us. They didn't know how to respond to this, and argued hysterically, trying to figure out what to do next. Finally, they agreed they couldn't run the risk that Neri had spread her poison to the rest of her family, and they said they were going to have us all executed. Me, Zolan, and Zara. The moment I heard this, I darted out of the council chamber and back to the manor house to save Zolan and Zara. I got some magic dust and sprinkled it on the ground to create a teleportation circle. I knew the only way to save my children was to teleport them out of Sorcia, but since teleportation spells can only be cast on others, not on oneself, I knew this would leave me behind to be executed. It was a sacrifice I was willing to make. I was also a little unsure how safe it would be exposing Sorcelings to the outside world, but I knew their chances out there were better than the certain death that awaited them here. I got Zolan and Zara and brought them to the circle. On the way, I told them there wasn't enough time to explain. All they needed to know was it was too dangerous for them to stay in Sorcia. I told Zolan, when you get to the other side, ask for... What was the name of that woman Neri had been watching in the mirror? After spending a few moments thinking about it, I told Zolan, Pella. Ask for Pella. I honestly didn't know if Pella and her husband would be willing to take them in, but I knew they desperately wanted children, and they seemed like good people. "One last thing," I said to Zolin. "Take care of Zara. I know you two don't always get along, but you're the only family she has now." In my mind, I envisioned the place I wanted to teleport them to, the room Pella and her husband were in, and I cast the spell on Zolin and Zara. Regardless of what happened to me, they were safe, and that was all that mattered. I didn't know if Nari was watching me from the spirit realm, but I hoped she could see how I had changed. Mere moments after Zara and Zolin disappeared, soldiers entered the room. The ordinary soldiers had metal helmets, wore hardened leather chest pieces over their robes, and carried warhammers. The officer wore a metal scale mail chest piece instead of a leather one, and carried a mace. "Where are your children?" the officer demanded. "I teleported them out of Sorcia itself," I said defiantly. "You can do whatever you want to me, but you will never be able to hurt them." "We should take him before the council," one of the soldiers suggested. "They'll probably want to hear about this." This time when I saw the council, they seemed to have really calmed down. They seemed a lot more rational and level-headed than before. They agreed that there had been enough senseless killing already, and even admitted that they might have overreacted when they declared to have us put to death. Still, my actions had exposed Sorcelings to the outside world. This was a very serious crime they could not overlook. They agreed not to execute me, but I was to be imprisoned for life. Vitaria's perspective. After my parents died, the authorities tried to send me to live with some of Mom's family, but I was so unhappy with them. They just weren't family to me the way Uncle Dowen and his family had been. I heard Dowen had been thrown in jail, so I decided it was up to me to bust him out. It really wasn't that hard getting into the dungeon. I carried a tray with wine glasses on it and told everyone I was a serving girl. I searched around until I finally found the cell with Dowen in it. There were 2 people guarding it. One was a woman with leather armor and a hammer, and the other was a man with metal armor, a mace, and keys. The keys to the cell. "Drinks for the hard-working guards?" I said as I approached. The guards were all too eager to take the wine from me, and they gulped it down. "That's right. Drink up," I whispered to myself. The guards were out in no time. The leaves I had crushed into the wine worked like a charm. I got the keys, unlocked Dowen's cell, and opened it. Dowen's perspective. It was when I heard my cell door opening that I thought I might actually care about what was going on. I opened my eyes and saw my niece, Vitaria. "Vitaria!" I said in shock. "What are you doing here?" "Busting you out," Vitaria said. "Come on, we need to get out of here before those guards wake back up." "Vitaria," I said very seriously, "you realize I'm considered an enemy of Sorcia, right? If you help me escape, we're both going to be wanted fugitives." "I know," Vitaria said. "I don't care. Now that Mom and Dad are gone, you're the only real parent I have. I guess I could have a nice life with Mom's family, but I'd rather have a real life with you." I didn't know what to do. I didn't want Vitaria to throw her life away for me, but this was what she wanted. As we left the dungeon, I took the mace and the hammer from the guards. I really didn't want us to have to fight anyone, but I knew we needed to be ready to defend ourselves. I knew that, just like for Zolin and Zara, Sorcia was no longer safe for us. I was really uneasy about going to the mainland, but I knew Vitaria and I would be caught sooner or later if we stayed in Sorcia. We went to a village near the coast and acquired a little boat. I really don't like to say stole, but what other choice did we have? All of Sorcia was looking for us. Even if I had the money to pay for it, I couldn't take the risk of the boat's owner recognizing us. After we went out to sea, we had to pass through a really bad storm that had raged ever since our people originally fled the mainland. It was a magical storm we had conjured to make sure no one could ever find us. But with our sorcery to protect us, we Sourcelings could pass through it relatively safely. It was actually a little overwhelming stepping foot onto mainland soil. It looked just like the Earth back in Sorcia, but I knew, aside from Zalin and Zara, we were the first Sourcelings to step foot on it in a very long time. I wondered if the people here still felt the same way about us as they had when we first fled. I learned in history lessons that, not long after we fled, the Council dispatched agents to destroy any written records telling of our existence. Maybe the people here didn't even know about us anymore, but I wasn't willing to take that risk. I told Viteria, we should avoid contact with other people if at all possible. I don't know if we can trust them. Why can't we trust them? Viteria asked. I realized she had probably never learned the secret knowledge of our people, since she was still only a child. Between their 14th and 16th birthdays, all Sourcelings undergo a coming-of-age ritual, where they perform some great task to prove they're worthy of being considered adults. And if they succeed, they are told all of our secrets. Our people controlled the single most powerful artifact in all of existence. We had to be secretive, even among our own people. When you're a bit older, I told her, you'll have to undergo a trial to prove you're worthy of being an adult. And if you succeed, I'll tell you everything I know, including why we don't trust others. From that point, Viteria and I wandered the world as outcasts. We survived by hunting and foraging, just as all people had ages ago. Occasionally, we'd make a quick visit to a village to trade for supplies. One of my first priorities was getting us a change of clothes. Even the finest robes wear out or get torn on a hunt, and I'm no tailor. Besides, we needed something that didn't make us stand out the way our Sourceling robes did. When we visited villages, we used sorcery to change the color of our hair in hopes that we wouldn't stand out, but we still got a lot of stares over our exotic, to them, clothes. I knew this was a good idea. I traded some hides from a hunt for dark cloaks. The cloaks weren't that different from our robes, so they were something we'd be comfortable wearing, but they were also something that would look familiar to other people. The cloaks also had hoods to cover our heads, so we could hide our hair without having to go through the trouble of recoloring it every time we had to be around other people. I also got a razor so I could keep my beard shaved. I missed that good old friend, but I knew the green hairs would still be visible even under a hood. Our lives ran relatively smoothly, but I could tell Viteria was getting a bit restless. The few times we'd visit villages, I'd see her trying to socialize with some of the people, and she seemed disappointed when it was time to leave. When she finally came of age and I said her trial was to go, by herself, to pick a flower growing on the top of a mountain, she said, "Why do I have to go alone? Haven't we been on our own long enough?" I told her she had to prove her strength by accomplishing this alone, and she grudgingly did it. When she came back with the flower, I told her all the secrets of our people. I told her why we were suspicious of mainlanders and had to limit our contact with them. It was because, about 100 years ago, all the nations and all the people of the world declared war on Sorcia because they wanted to get to the source. Our people fought valiantly, but they couldn't hold off the entire world. Seemingly with no other options, our entire people fled from the mainland and went to a remote island where we hoped no one could find us or the source. Viteria said she understood why we were suspicious of mainlanders, but she desperately wanted real friends and thought we should give them another chance. I remembered exactly what happened the last time someone suggested this, and I didn't support her in her decision.